Between forgotten plates and glasses, two souls recognized each other. A simple request opened the door to a love that no one imagined. Marina never imagined that serving a coffee would change her life forever. What she didn't know is that the woman sitting at table 7 kept a secret that would destroy an entire family in a matter of days. And you won't believe what happened when these two first looked at each other. It was an ordinary Tuesday at the Bourbon Street Cafe when it all began. Marina adjusted her apron for the 10th time that shift, her fingers trembling slightly, not from the cold but from something she still couldn't name. 3 years working in that place, and she had never felt that butterflies in her stomach when she saw a customer enter. The woman who had just walked through the door was different, not only for the natural elegance or the way her eyes roamed the room, but for something deeper, something that Marina would only understand weeks later when it would be too late to go back. Helena Andrade was 42 years old and had a 20-year marriage that seemed perfect in everyone's eyes. Successful lawyer, mother of 2 teenage children, devoted wife. But that morning, as she waited for her coffee to be served, she felt as if she was awakening from a 2-decade-old dream. The first eye contact lasted only 3 seconds, but it was enough for both of them to know that something had changed, irrevocably. Marina approached the table with her hands slightly shaky, her heart beating at a pace she had never experienced before. "Good morning, what will you wish?" Marina's voice came out lower than usual, almost a whisper. Helena looked up from the menu and for a moment completely forgot where she was. The waitress in front of her had something in her eyes that she recognized, something she had lost long ago and didn't even know she missed. "An espresso, please." Helena managed to answer, but her words carried a weight that a simple request should not have. What neither of them knew was that across the street, someone had photographed that moment. Someone who knew Helena Andrade very well and who had her own reasons for being there at that very moment. Marina served the coffee with the care of someone who handles something precious. When their hands touched as they handed over the cup, it was as if an electric current had run through their bodies. Helena withdrew her hand quickly, but not before she felt that her life had just taken a completely new direction. "Thank you," Helena murmured, but her eyes said much more than that. For the next 20 minutes, Helena pretended to read emails on her cell phone while watching Marina work. Every move of the young waitress seemed choreographed especially for her. It was as if the world had gained colors that she had not seen in years. Marina, in turn, found excuses to stop by Helena's desk, cleaning already clean tables, adjusting chairs that didn't need to be adjusted, anything to have a new opportunity to cross eyes with that mysterious woman. When Helena finally got up to leave, she did something she had never imagined doing. He left a note along with the tip. "I'll be back tomorrow at the same time, Helena." Marina found the note 5 minutes later and felt as if her legs were going to give out. She tucked the paper into her apron pocket, as if it were treasure, unaware that that simple gesture would set off a series of events that would put 3 families at risk. Across the street, the camera kept recording every move. The next morning, Helena was back, and in the other 2, and the other, always at the same time, always at the same table, always asking for the same thing. But each day the conversations grew longer, the looks more intense, the hands touching each other by chance more often. On the 5th day, Helena arrived later. Marina had spent 2 hours staring at the door, her heart sinking, thinking that perhaps she had imagined everything. When he finally saw her enter, the relief was so great that she had to lean on the counter. "I thought I wouldn't come anymore," Marina said without being able to disguise the vulnerability in her voice. "I thought that too," Helena answered, and for the first time her voice trembled. It was at that moment that Helena asked the question that would change everything. "Would you like to have a coffee with me somewhere else?" Marina did not hesitate. Yes. What they didn't know is that this conversation had been recorded, and that in less than 24 hours, Helena's husband would receive an envelope with photos that would prove that his wife was not working late as she said. But that's just the beginning of the story. Because when Ricardo Andrade opened that envelope, he didn't imagine that the revelation about his wife would be just the first in a series of secrets that would destroy everything he believed he knew about his own family. Ricardo Andrade has always been a man of routines. 45, A civil engineer, he woke up every day at 6:30, took a shower, shaved, kissed his wife while still asleep and left for work. 20 years of marriage had set a pace that he considered perfect. Until that Thursday in March, when his secretary knocked on the office door with an expression he had never seen before. "Mr. Ricardo, this has come to you." Carla held out the brown envelope with visibly nervous hands. "There is no sender." Ricardo took the envelope without giving it much importance. Probably more of a budget or business proposal. But when she opened it and saw the first photo, her world came crashing down in a matter of seconds. Helena, your Helena, holding the hands of a waitress who could not have been more than 25 years old. The smile on his wife's face was one he hadn't seen in at least 10 years. It was a smile of someone who is discovering love for the first time. The following photos were even more devastating. Helena and the waitress walking hand in hand through the city center. Helena leaning against the wall of an alley, being kissed with an intensity that reminded Ricardo of when they were young and in love. But the last photo was the one that really destroyed it. Helena entering a hotel with the young woman, looking to the sides as if she has something to hide. The date in the lower right corner showed that the photo had been taken 3 days ago, on the Tuesday when Helena said she stayed late in the office preparing an important case. Ricardo sat in the leather armchair in the office, the same armchair where he had celebrated so many professional achievements, and for the first time in 20 years, he cried. Not a discreet or contained cry, but deep sobs that came from the depths of the soul. Meanwhile, 50 kilometers away, Marina waited tables in the cafe with a smile that intrigued all her colleagues. A week ago, she was just another employee working her shift, but now she radiated an energy that was contagious, even to the most grumpy customers. "What happened to you?" asked Julia, the colleague who worked the afternoon shift. "It's different, more live." Marina didn't know how to explain it. How could I say that at the age of 26 she had discovered what it was to be truly in love? How to tell that a married woman had come into his life like a hurricane, turning each day into a new adventure? "It's just a good phase," he replied, but his eyes sparkled in a way that gave away much more. What Marina didn't imagine is that her good phase was about to become the nightmare of several people, because Ricardo Andrade was not the type of man who would accept a betrayal in silence, and Helena was not who she appeared to be either. That same afternoon, Helena cancelled an important meeting to meet Marina. They had arranged to see each other in a small cafe on the other side of town, away from prying eyes and the places they usually frequented. Marina arrived first and chose a table in the back, away from the windows. Her heart raced every time she heard the doorbell, until finally Helena appeared. Even from a distance, Marina could tell that something was different. Helena looked tense, worried. "Sorry for the delay." Helena sat down and immediately looked for Marina's hands on the table. "I had a rough morning at the office." It was a lie. Helena had spent the whole morning thinking about how to tell Ricardo about her feelings for Marina. He had rehearsed the conversation 1,000 times in the mirror, but he always came to the same conclusion. There was no easy way to destroy a family. "Are you okay?" Marina asked, shaking Helena's hands. "She looks worried." Helena looked into the eyes of the woman who had turned her life upside down in just 2 weeks. How to explain that she had been married for 20 years, that she had 2 teenage children, that her whole life was built on a lie that she could only now see? "Marina, I need to tell you a few things about myself." Helena started, but was interrupted by the sound of her own cell phone. It was a message from Ricardo. "I need to talk to you. Urgent. Come home now." Helena's blood ran cold. Ricardo never sent messages in the middle of the afternoon. I never asked her to get home early. He never used the word urgent. "I need to go." Helena stood up quickly, but not before kissing Marina on the forehead. "I'll call you later." Marina was alone at the table, with the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. And she was right. When Helena got home, she found Richard sitting in the living room, with an envelope in his hand and an expression she had never seen in 20 years of marriage. It wasn't anger. It was something much worse. It was deep disappointment mixed with a sadness that seemed to come from a very dark place. "Can we talk?" he said, and Helena knew at once that her double life had come to an end. But what neither of them knew was that those photos had not reached Ricardo by chance. Someone very close to the Andrade family had personal reasons for wanting to destroy Helena's marriage, and this person was just getting started. 3 weeks before the photos reached Ricardo's hands, Patricia Andrade was in the room that was once hers, looking at the bed where she once slept next to the man she considered the love of her life. Ricardo didn't know that she had a copy of the house key. Ricardo didn't know many things about his ex-wife. Patricia had been married to Ricardo for 12 years, long before Helena appeared in his life. The divorce took place 8 years ago, officially due to irreconcilable differences, but the truth was much more painful. Ricardo had fallen in love with Helena while he was still married to Patricia. Now, watching the photos of Helena in Ricardo's arms spread across the bedside table, Patricia smiled with a bitterness that had intensified with each passing year. Finally, after 8 years of planning, she had found the perfect opportunity for her revenge. The private investigator she had hired was discreet and efficient. It had cost a fortune, but seeing the photos of Helena in the arms of another woman had been worth every penny. Patricia knew that Ricardo was conservative, that he would never accept a betrayal, much less a betrayal of this kind. "Perfect," she mumbled to herself, putting the photos away in a folder. "Let's see how you feel about being betrayed, Ricardo." What Patricia did not calculate is that her revenge would end up reaching innocent people. Marina, for example, who at that exact moment was at home, looking at her cell phone that didn't ring, waiting for a call from Helena that wouldn't come. Marina shared a small apartment with 2 college classmates in the city center. She had abandoned her psychology studies 2 years ago to work full-time and help her family in the countryside. But lately, she had been thinking about going back to school. Helena had encouraged her, saying that she was too smart to spend her life serving coffee. "Marina, are you okay?" asked Camilla, one of the flatmates. "You've been looking at that phone for 2 hours." Marina didn't know how to answer. How to explain that he had fallen in love with a married woman. How to tell that for the first time in her life she felt that she had found her place in the world, but that this place depended on someone who had a whole life built away from her. "It's complicated," was all he could say. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Helena and Ricardo were in the living room that had been the scene of so many happy family conversations. But now the silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of the photos being placed one by one on the coffee table. "How long ago?" Ricardo asked, his voice more controlled than Helena expected. 2 weeks, Helena responded, deciding that honesty was the only option she had left. "And are you in love with her?" The question caught Helena off guard. She expected screams, accusations, maybe even violence. But I didn't expect this question asked with such deep sadness. "Yes." The answer came out like a whisper, but it echoed in the room like thunder. Ricardo nodded slowly, as if he had just received confirmation of something he already suspected. He got up and walked to the window, looking at the garden they had planted together 5 years ago. "Do the boys know?" "No, and I didn't want them to know like that." "How did you want them to know, Helena?" "That their mother is having an affair with a woman young enough to be their daughter." It was the first time that Ricardo raised his voice, and Helena realized that underneath that apparent calm, there was a fury that she had never seen. "It's not a case, Ricardo. I fell in love." "Did you fall in love?" Ricardo turned to face her. "And what happens to me, with our children, with the 20 years we have built together?" Helena had no answer to this question. How to explain that sometimes life changes direction without warning? How could she tell that she had discovered a part of herself that she didn't even know existed? "I didn't plan that," was all he could say. "What now? What do you plan to do now?" Before Helena could answer, the front door opened and Pedro, the youngest 16-year-old son, came in carrying his school bag. He stopped in the middle of the room when he saw his parents in an obviously serious conversation, the photos scattered on the table. "Hi, Dad. Hi, Mom. Is that okay?" Helena quickly put the photos together before Pedro could see it, but the boy had already noticed the tension in the air. "It's okay, son," Ricardo said, forcing a smile. "His mom and I were just talking about work." Pedro nodded, but Helena could see in her son's eyes that he didn't completely believe in the explanation. The boy had always been perceptive, a trait that Helena had always admired, but now terrified her. After Pedro went up to the room, Ricardo sat down again. "We're going to have to tell them," he said. "Not today, but soon. They deserve to know the truth." "Ricardo, You what, Helena? Do you want to keep it a secret forever? Do you want to keep lying to the whole family?" The accusation was fair, but it hurt more than Helena imagined it could, because the truth is that she didn't know what she wanted. He only knew that he couldn't stop thinking about Marina, who for the first time in years felt really alive. "I need time to think," Helena said finally. "How long?" "I don't know." Ricardo sighed deeply, as if he had just realized that the life he knew had come to an end. "Helena, I loved you for 20 years. I still love you. But I can't compete with something I don't even understand properly." It was at that moment that Helena realized that she had lost much more than a husband. He had lost a best friend, a companion, a lifetime of shared memories. But he also realized that he could not go back. Marina had woken up a part of her that had been sleeping for years, maybe decades. The phone rang, breaking the tense silence. It was Marina. Helena looked at Ricardo, asking for silent permission. He nodded, but his eyes clearly said, "This is going to be the last time." "Hello? Helena, are you okay? I tried to call earlier, but—" "Marina, I can't talk right now." "What happened? Your voice is strange." Helena looked at Ricardo, who was listening to each word with an expression of pain that she knew she would carry in her memory for the rest of her life. "I'll call you later, okay?" After he hung up, Helena and Ricardo looked at each other in silence. Both knew there was no turning back. The marriage had ended at that very moment. What neither of them imagined is that Patricia was outside the house, in the car, listening to every word through a listening device she had installed months ago, and that she was already planning the next step of revenge that was just beginning. 2 weeks after the conversation that changed everything, Helena was sitting on a park bench in the center of the city, waiting for Marina to arrive for a conversation that she knew would be the hardest of their lives. Ricardo had moved into an apartment near the office. The children were confused and hurt, and Helena felt as if she were living in a nightmare from which she could not wake up. Marina appeared punctually at 4 in the afternoon, but something in her expression immediately alerted Helena that there was news, and it was not good. "We need to talk," Marina said, even before sitting down. "I had a visitor this morning." Helena felt her stomach twitch. "What kind of visit?" "A woman. He said his name was Patricia and that he knew you very well." Helena's world stopped. Patricia, Ricardo's ex-wife, the woman she had helped take out of the life of the man she loved 8 years ago, the woman who had sworn that one day she would take revenge. What did she want? Marina sat next to Helena, but kept a distance that didn't exist before. "She told me some things about you. Things you never told me." Helena closed her eyes, knowing that her life was about to fall apart completely. "Marina, I can explain." "Can you explain how you were the one who destroyed her marriage to Ricardo? How were you his lover while he was still married to her?" The accusation hit Helena like a punch in the stomach, not because it was false, but because it was true. 8 years ago, she had been the other woman. She had been the one who broke a family, who seduced a married man, who built her happiness on someone else's pain. "Marina, when you met Ricardo, he had been married to her for 12 years. Marina interrupted, her voice loaded with a disappointment that cut Helena's heart. "She showed me pictures, Helena, photos of the two of you together while she was still his wife." Helena couldn't find words. How do we explain that love sometimes makes us commit acts that we regret for the rest of our lives? How to justify that he had done exactly to Patricia what Ricardo was now suffering with her? "You lied to me from the beginning," Marina continued. "It made me believe that you were a victim of a loveless marriage, when in fact you were the one who destroyed your husband's previous marriage." "Marina, please let me explain." "Explain what? That you have a habit of falling in love with committed people? That I'm just another one on the list of your achievements?" The cruelty of Marina's words was proportional to the pain she was feeling. Helena could see in the eyes of the woman she loved that something had broken irretrievably between them. "That's not it. What I feel for you is unlike anything else." "Is it different?" Marina stood up, her hands shaking with anger. "It's exactly the same thing, Helena. You fell in love with a person you couldn't have, you broke a family, and now you're doing the same thing again." Helena stood up too, trying to take Marina's hands, but she pulled away as if the touch burned. "Marina, I love you. I've never loved anyone like I love you." "And do you think that justifies everything? Do you think love justifies destroying entire families?" The question echoed in Helena's mind because she had no answer. Or rather, she had an answer that she didn't want to admit. Yes, she thought that love justified everything. He always did. It was like that with Ricardo 8 years ago, and it was like that with Marina now. "Patricia told me one more thing." Marina spoke, her voice now lower, more dangerous. "She told me that you made the same promise to her that you are making to me now, that she was going to leave her husband, that she was going to start a new life, that it was going to be different this time." Helena felt her legs weaken. Because it was true. 8 years ago, while destroying Patricia and Ricardo's marriage, she had promised Ricardo that she would leave her own husband, that they would build a life together based on true love. "But you never left your husband, did you?" Marina continued. "You stayed with Ricardo, married him, and now you're doing to me exactly what you did to him, promising a future you never intended to fulfill." "That's not true," Helena screamed, drawing the attention of some people passing by the square. "I left my husband, yes. I married Ricardo because I loved him." "What now? Will you leave Ricardo for me?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine about to fall. Helena opened her mouth to answer, but not a word came out, because at that moment she realized a terrible truth about herself. She didn't know if she could leave Ricardo. "I didn't know if I could destroy another family. I didn't know if I had the courage to start over at the age of 42. Marina saw the hesitation in Helena's eyes and nodded slowly, as if she had just received the answer she didn't want to hear. "That's what I thought," she said, picking up her bag. "Patricia was right about you." "Marina, wait." "No, Helena, I don't wait. Because for the first time in my life I understood one thing. I deserve more than being someone's secret lover. I deserve to be someone's priority, not the dirty little secret." Marina started to walk away, but stopped and turned around one last time. "Do you know what hurts me the most? It's just that I really believed you were different, that what we had was special. But you're exactly the same as everyone else. You want to have the cake and eat it too." Helena watched Marina walk away, until she disappeared among the trees of the square, knowing that she had lost the woman she loved because of the ghosts of her own past. But what Helena didn't know is that Patricia was watching the whole scene from afar, recording every word with professional equipment, and that recording would be sent to Ricardo later that night, proving that Helena had not only betrayed the marriage, but had also lied about leaving him for Marina. Patricia's revenge was almost complete. Almost. Because the next morning, Ricardo would receive a call that would change everything again. A call from a private investigator, hired by himself, with information about Patricia that explained much more than just the divorce from 8 years ago. Information that proved that Patricia had orchestrated everything from the beginning, that she had manipulated Marina, that she had hired the photographer, that she had planted the evidence. Information that showed that Patricia was not just a vengeful ex-wife. She was far more dangerous than anyone imagined. And now that she had managed to separate Helena from Marina and Ricardo, she was ready for the final phase of a plan she had been executing for 8 years, a plan that would put the lives of all the people involved at real risk.